Hello, Made to Thrive Nation. We have got a South African hero. I've been following her work for a while, and her book, Power Up 8, is a must for everyone. I tell you, there's so much to go through. I don't think one podcast is going to do it any due whatsoever, but I'm building a relationship with this wonderful lady, Debbie Craig. Welcome to the Made to Thrive show. It's a privilege and it's an honor because we're going to be talking about transformation, sustainable transformation. And you know, at Made to Thrive, we're talking about long-term lifestyle habits that are crucially important. So welcome to the show, Debbie.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's very great to be here, and hopefully I can shine some light on some of the topics you want to dig into.
Absolutely, because I think through this whole COVID time, people are battling with long-term change. When there was suffering, there was pain, there was anxiety, there was uncertainty and instability. People made these short-term changes in their lives. And I've been talking about vitamin D for 24 years in the practice, and all of a sudden people know about vitamin D and want to take it. So it's out of suffering that people make these changes, but we want long-term change. So just introduce yourself. I know you've written this brilliant book, and if you're on YouTube, Power Up 8, I think it's just eight core capabilities or critical capabilities that you want to adopt and then master, I think, because there's some incredible quotes. I mean, I've tried to find the best quote, and it's been so difficult. So this book is really rich. I am pumping it because I think I've learned so much from it, and I think it's so critical if you want to have influence in this world. So tell us a little bit about Catalyst Consulting, how long you've been doing it, your journey. We'll go into your backstory a little bit more because I think it's important, but we do want to grab the people's attention that are listening, the audience, and so give us a short background.
Thanks, Steve. I started Catalyst Consulting at a very young age of about 27, 28, and it's been going for over 26, 27 years now. And it started out with a passion to want to make a difference to individuals and to teams. So I was running team building, I was running personal mastery and performance management and a whole bunch of stuff. And over the years have branched out into large-scale talent, leadership, culture transformation, team alignment, working at higher and higher and more senior levels and more systemic change as we've gone through.
Okay.
And over the years, there's always been, I love to innovate, and I love to be able to pull things together and then write about it and then teach other people what I'm learning, because I want to build capability and enable and empower people to do that. Cool. And so over this COVID time, it was actually started in 2017. I went to Singularity University. And I was part of a global grand challenge of resolving the education and learning crisis in the world with 56 other people from 26 different countries. It was a fabulous immersion for a number of days. And in that session, it was so many digitized new AI and robotics and drones and various things to help education, but a lot less impact or focus on mindset change and building thirst and building motivation to learn and having role models and mentoring for learning. So as time went by, I started collecting more and more information and data and research. And of course, when COVID hit, I didn't have an excuse anymore to delay. And I said, I want to leave this time where we sort of shut down with something that I can offer. So I started running webinars, and I started just sharing the information, and slowly but surely often through conversation and other ideas from people, the book was birthed and we brought it out, and now we've turned it into a learning program and using it to actually assist organizations and teams to shift culture and build capability for the future.
Sounds good. Give us a practical story, man. I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it, and apology, I should have given this offline, but a real amazing story, maybe a male and a female, of someone adopting your work or something that they've been battling with for years. Like if you look at weight loss, 80 to 95% of people regain the weight within 5 years in terms of losing it, just because there's so many factors with regards to sustainable change or long-term transformation, which we're looking at. So give us a little bit of a snippet of a story of someone, a real person that really adopted some of your work, your mindset changes and that thing, and just were able to transform their lives.
Well, let me start with a little WhatsApp that I received yesterday from a lovely lady called Sue. She's one of our Power Up 8 facilitators, and I first met her about 15 years ago when I was rolling out a large-scale change process within a company that was local but took us global. We ended up training leadership and talent and strategy in 9 different regions, and she was the HR manager here in South Africa. And she was in not a good state. She'd been through a very difficult life. She'd been, struggled various deep trauma. And through the processes that we went through, even in those days, through the book I'm Talent, and then the personal mastery workshop, and then she came on some other transformation, and more recently last year she came on the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat that I run called Quantum Leap Retreat. And she wrote this WhatsApp just to say she's just finished her first, actually her third in the last week, 2-day Power Up 8 program for Vodacom, and is feeling just so in her zone, in her purpose, seeing lights go on for people, empowering people, and teaching them what she learned and how her life transformed back in that time.
Wow.
So over the time, she's able to move from being overweight and not really doing much activity to actually trail running and running long distance. Sure. And building her own business. She left corporate, built her own business, and now she's still running her own business in KZN, plus facilitating now for us and doing fabulously.
Brilliant. And what did she say was the key sort of marker in the journey that really took her from someone who's sort of possibly could have had a victim mindset, really, things are impossible, I can't change my circumstances and situations, to someone who's like just thriving now?
Steve, I think, I've since day dot, I've been focused on personal empowerment, personal mastery, and that we have the choice. Yeah. We have the choice to make the change, but not everybody feels able to make that change because they keep going back into that. But when it really drops into your subconscious mind, and you can use techniques like Alpha State, where you can use meditation, where you can use sort of daily habit practice, when you can use heart coherence techniques, and you understand the science of change. And I think that's the big thing that I love about the Dr. Joe Dispenza work that I'm doing, is he brings the science of change and the science of learning and how to shift from the victim to victim mentality, or from self-sabotage to self-master. And when you get that at a deep, visceral, sort of cellular level, then you wake up in the morning and there's not even a need to have discipline or need to have sort of the push and the drive. It's kind of like your neural paths have actually shifted, and now you filter data differently. And once the data is filtered differently, you make decisions differently, and then you can move into a new state of being.
So we'll talk about, Joe, I've listened to a lot of his, in terms of 95% of your life is like automated by the subconscious mind. That's where you need the change. So it sounds like we'll go into the details, because I think it's important, and possibly there's a process of change that you want to look at, or transformation. I know you got your 8 critical capabilities that we're going to go through, very important wise, but maybe another story, a male story of someone maybe overcoming disease or sort of changing their lives, or maybe even a relationship story that you've got for some male that's listening there saying, listen, I've tried X, Y, Z, I've seen every single doctor out there and I'm still struggling with this. What can I do?
Sure. There's many examples. I'm trying to think of what would be the one. I remember I used the one guy who has also been sort of a collaboration partner with us for a number of years and been running his own executive coaching business and doing really well. But over COVID times, all of a sudden his business just really went down and folded horribly. And he was put under a lot of financial pressure. At the same time, he had a lot of relationship pressure, being in a long marriage, and that also unraveled. So he was sitting there with financial and relationship challenges, and he did our Power Up 8 Train the Trainer workshop that covers a lot of the neurochange work, plus works on building those capabilities of curiosity and starting to be curious about myself and how I'm showing up and why are these things happening in my life. Being able to have the courage to confront both myself and others and be authentic and be honest around what's actually going on, because you can't solve these horrible, ugly, hairy dilemmas if you're trying to be polite and you're trying to keep the peace. You've got to actually just get very honest and robust with each other. And through this journey, which was over a number of weeks, and then follow up over a number of months, and then doing the Train the Trainer, he was able to completely shift his business, to go online, to work with us on some much bigger consulting projects. He was able to re-engage with his family and his wife, and is now totally committed to making that work and making his business work, and he's thriving. Wow. And he's also said to us that the turnaround point was in a few critical moments in this process of learning with the Power Up 8 capabilities, and really challenging deeply held beliefs about himself. And a big thing is opening your heart. So I find with a lot of men and with a lot of men clients, I'm coaching a lot of people sort of like right on the edge at the moment, and they're about to fall over with burnout, and how they've been doing things up until now is just no longer working, and it's just working harder and harder and harder and getting less and less results. And a lot of that happens at a mental, cognitive, ego, structuring my persona and keeping safe and seen in a particular way. And only when you can start finding connection and synchronizing your heart and your brain and the cognitive and the emotional, and actually opening yourself up and becoming vulnerable and honest and authentic and open to different ways of doing life, then you can be led towards solutions that are more sustainable and connections that are more real.
Sure. Okay, so there's a lot there. There's heart coherence, there's mind, heart, body, emotion, subconscious. Let's sort of deconstruct it before we go into the 8 critical capabilities in terms of the process of change. So if someone's looking there and saying, listen, you know what, I really can't say no to alcohol, I can't say no to sex, whatever they're addicted or enslaved to, or possibly like spending money, or just something that they really have a stronghold, they can't seem to break it, or weight gain, whatever it is. How do you take that person or that client, and what are the like important foundations that you try and set up?
It's helpful to have a couple of models and frameworks for people, and I'm going to start with some of maybe the Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff, which informed some of my work that I've done in Power Up 8 initially. And if you break it down into the most simplest 3 things, our personal reality is made up of our personality, and our personality is made up of how we think, act, and feel, right? Sounds like, life 101. How we think, how we act, how we feel. So if we really want to change how we exercise, how we have our diet, or how we interact with our kids, or how we do our work, if we want to change, we have to change how we think, which changes how we act, which changes then how we feel, and that feeling cycle then creates a thinking feeling loop, and we start making the shift. But there are so many things that are in a way limiting our ability to change that. And the big 3 things that he talks about is you've got to be able to overcome your environment, your body, and your time. Now the environment, if you are stuck in a comfortable, familiar, similar environment every day, and we've got 60 to 70,000 thoughts that are running through our minds every day, 90% of those are actually the same as the day before, and the day before that, and the tomorrow. We have to be able to change that within an environment. We have to actually be changing the vision for ourselves, and then be able to do that despite the circumstances around us. So if we're sitting in a bad financial situation, or a bad relationship, or we're stressed at work, we've got to think bigger than that and starting to be relaxed in a stressful environment.
So your environment is crucial. You have to change the way you think in that environment.
In that environment, yes.
Okay. Thinking consciously and subconsciously.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
All right.
You've got to, and the subconscious piece is becoming aware of those thoughts and those beliefs that are sitting at a subconscious level. So regardless of your environment, so Mandela being in prison for 27 years, he was able to think greater than that environment and be able to interact and create a vision for himself and for the country, regardless of his environment or his circumstances. So we've got to be able to get beyond the environment, which is also people. Our reaction and our responses and our frustrations and our characters in our lives that push our buttons and trigger us into getting all...
So something like that, we've got load shedding, we've got no water in the weekends, I've got 48 hours without water, and then I don't have power, and there's load shedding. Now, however I respond to that situation is often subconscious in terms of my belief around that, or my emotions around that, or combination of those two.
Correct.
So if I need to change my response to that environment or that situation, then I'm going to have to work on my subconscious thinking and my emotions that are related to that.
And emotions, So we said environment, body, and time.
Yes.
Your body is your body holds emotions in automatic patterns. And as we are triggered by an outside environment or an outside trigger, it stimulates the chemistry that holds that emotional memory together and releases the emotions all over again and the chemistry all over again. So we get triggered unconsciously to feel certain habitual feelings and thoughts. So,
but that's based on beliefs.
Based on not just beliefs, based on experience.
Okay.
Maybe sort of a story you have around that previous experience.
Or self-talk or belief around that experience.
Correct.
So load shedding is like really bad. So then you trigger that thought and then emotion and goes from there. If you think load shedding, if you can see in the future, what I hear you saying is, if you can see in load shedding, you can have a predetermined belief around that. Say, it's time to meditate or spend time with my family, and then try and change the emotions around that. You possibly will change the reaction to that.
And the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So if you're stressing and you making worst case scenarios in your head, your body does not know the difference, and your brain doesn't know the difference whether that's real. So it goes into stress response, floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline and all the lovely stress hormones, which creates you to be narrow focused and gets more grumpy and egotistical and self driven. And that's the behavior that we see coming through, and that's all very bad for your health and bad for the people around you, and you end up saying things you regret So we've got to become greater than our emotional response and be able to sort of use our metacognition, our ability to watch ourselves and remember we have a choice to be frustrated or to be anxious or to be crazy about whether it's load shedding or water or how my spouse or person reacts, and actually choose a different mental state and choose a different emotional state. So cultivate it from a point of choice rather than from a point of reaction.
And do we need other people around us to actually give us that feedback? Because sometimes we don't realize how we're acting, and so the lens that we see the world through is often not what's the reality of that. Is it valuable to have people that speak into our lives, that people that we trust, because we often don't recognize those type of emotions or thoughts or actions?
Absolutely. I mean, a buddy or an accountability partner, a friend, someone who has got our best interests at heart, a coach, can really accelerate that journey to change, to create that different perspective. We've got a beautiful community of people, in our Power Up community and in the Dr. Joe Dispenza community we've all given each other permission to sort of show up the mirror.
Okay.
And that's a lot of what we do with the work and with our coaching and with our team coaching, is showing the mirror to people and giving them a choice, through conversation or through diagnostics and surveys that we do as well.
So do you assess them? Like, is there a 360 assessment around them? Or if someone's listening now and saying, listen, oh no, I'm fine, it's not that, I don't think I react badly, and then someone cuts them off in like a taxi, and then they like explode, and then that's a reaction out of some type of belief, or a belief that's linked to an emotion, or both, what I'm hearing you. There's entanglement there.
Correct.
Okay, and that's how you got to change that entanglement with your thoughts, your subconscious thoughts and emotions.
So, I mean, you can use other people to give you, actually ask, we really encourage people as part of the Power Up 8 sort of courage and consciousness, is encourage people to ask people, how am I showing up? What are my strengths, and what are the things, if you had to coach me, would you coach me on? And we also have a free resilience potential survey. So if you go on our website at catalystconsulting.co.za, you can actually go in and do a free resilience potential assessment on the 8 capabilities, so that can help.
Okay.
And then within Catalyst, there's a whole lot of other assessments we do on personality and other things if they're interested. Yeah.
So actually the start to transformation and change is awareness.
Correct.
If you have to summarize it. Awareness of how you think, how you act, and how you feel.
Yeah. And then awareness of how you are reacting or responding to environment, body and time.
Okay.
The things and people and places around you, your emotional triggers and habitual conditioned responses in terms of body, and that automatic reaction and patterns that just come out. And time is how much, in terms of time, are we either bringing the past baggage with us into the moment and those wounded moments and being more highly triggered than what the evidence actually suggests right in front of me, or we're projecting worst case scenarios into the future and creating a whole lot more anxiety and frustration and guilt and all kinds of stuff, which has actually got nothing to do with this present moment. So how do we spend as much time as we can being present, being calm in our brain, being coherent in our heart, and listening and tuning in to our intuition and to, if we want to go, to other sort of higher intelligences around us, listening to what is best for me and my purpose and my community around me, and take action for that higher level of awareness.
So that's time. So you said time.
Environment, body and time.
Environment, body and time.
And the time is about your most powerful place to create is in the present moment, as opposed to thinking about the future and thinking and bringing in the past.
Okay. All right, so let's look at awareness. We biohackers, or we do health optimization, auditing, and heart math is something that I think you're familiar with, and coherence. Maybe you want to define what heart coherence is. Maybe you want to talk about heart rate variability and the assessments, because there are some people, and I find it's very valuable after 24 years of practice, who want data, who like to see what happens with like heart math and heart rate variability and all those things. How do you assess that?
So there are a number of instruments, I suppose, that are currently able to get a heart rate variance monitor. You can actually get and stick it on your ear or wherever. There's a new technology that I'm just going to be bringing in now from a company in the States, where it's on your cell phone, on your camera. And actually with 1 minute of your thumb on your camera, you can actually measure your heart rate variance. And the heart rate variance has got a very, very high correlation. If you can increase your baseline of your heart rate variance to be more harmonious, to be more coherent, and to be less jagged with frustration and anxiety, and rather calm and appreciation. There's a direct influence on health and on mental performance and on physical performance.
So that's coherence, that's variance.
The heart rate variance is you have a coherent heart rate variance, which is a harmonious flow in terms of equal times between beats as opposed to a jagged flow, which is sort of up and down. It's when you're out of coherence, it's like putting your foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time in your car and trying to get somewhere. You're going to burn the engine out pretty quickly, and that's what happens to burnout over a period of time. Is we kind of in that stress state and we're in that emotional reactive state, and
but
our
that's
heart
different
is all
to
over
variability,
the place.
because they say heart rate variability, HRV, the more varied your heart rate is, the healthier you are. Is that different to variance?
The heart rate variance is the gap between, or the equal rhythm between your heartbeats.
Okay.
So if you've got a very sort of,
I didn't understand that.
I don't know what's going on there. If you've got a very harmonious, equal amount of time between your beats, that is your good heart rate variance, and that is coherence. As soon as you start getting like a da-da-da-da-da, and then a sort of a beat, and then a longer beat and a shorter beat, that's often because we're in an emotionally stressed state, and that would be incoherent heart rate.
And that's
variance.
heart math, they do the same thing?
That's the heart math.
Okay, because a lot of psychologists and counselors use heart math, is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that open to the public at all?
Open to the public. You can go onto heartmath.com. They've got fantastic resources. They've got fantastic online learning programs, great techniques. And the work that we've done with Dr. Joe Dispenza Change Your Mind, Create New Results program is now integrated with heart math. So we've all been trained as heart math coaches as well.
Is that quite big in SA or Africa, heart math? Or not
it's growing. It's growing. Yeah, it's much bigger in the States and Europe, but it's growing here as a methodology.
So then, what about labs, or does Dr. Joe talk about, or yourself talk about labs and looking at sort of functional tests on like DHEA, cortisol? Does he believe in that? Because I know that he wants to make it more science-based, so he's probably doing more brain. I think he's done like 8,000 brain scans, is that correct? Or something like that?
Well, that was the last time you might have read about it, but over the last 2 years, they've done the biggest advanced meditation study in the world ever. And they've been measuring brain scans, heart rate variance, including blood, stool, lifestyle, food, all kinds of samples, around many, many thousands of meditators in controlled environments of the retreat environment. And Dr. Hassan is doing, Dr. Hamill has now started to show the research. And there's massive, highly significant correlations between advanced meditators who are able to access both alpha brainwave state and heart rate variance with immune system, with cardiac health, with PTSD, with anxiety, with depression. It's amazing research.
Do you have those links that we can put in the show notes, and that will
I can give you some. Their new research project is called Inner Science, and they've got a process. It's still obviously only a couple of years old, but the research coming out of there is astounding.
Okay, so let's talk about brainwave states then, and where you need to go to in terms of change, or changing those thoughts, beliefs, and then the emotions linked to that, and maybe take us through those different brainwave states. And then I know that if you move away from your meditation, you're exactly the same and you respond like you did the day before, then it's pointless almost, because you haven't changed anything from a neural perspective at all. But maybe take us through the process of brainwaves.
So can I take one step back and
of course.
use brainwaves as part of that? And I suppose Dr. Joe has his formula. I've got my Power Up 8 capabilities, and my 6 brain shifts, and other people will have their own recipes. And I suppose for me, because I'm coaching people and running retreats, I've tried to simplify it for myself for a few key things. If you can remember these few things, it'll help you to make the change sustainable. So, the first one is around your ability to visualize and imagine a future self that is more fit, or more energized, or
whatever you
more
want,
abundant,
actually.
or whatever it is for you. You define your own level of success, and using your ability to imagine with feeling yourself living into that, and almost acting as if you are your future self. Because if the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, you're creating in advance the neural paths as if it's already happened, and therefore you'll start to filter information differently. If you add that intention, or that visualized future self, with your alpha brainwave state. So if you want to talk about the brainwaves, most of us, when we're in awaken, we're sort of operating every day as in beta brainwave state, high beta if we're stressed, and we sort of in stress response. And alpha is the doorway to the subconscious mind. And if you want to improve your programs and improve how you automatically respond to life, then it's a good idea to be in the alpha state and go directly into the operating system of how we have programmed ourselves, or how we're socially programmed. So being able to very quickly, being able to use breathing techniques, heart coherence techniques, observation techniques, drop into alpha state, and in that state, you actually do the visualization and you do the imagined and you walk into your future state.
Is that alpha state or is that the theta state?
That's alpha.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can go deeper for the more advanced meditators, they can drop into theta, which is even, more direct access, but alpha is very accessible to most of us.
So how would people know if they're in alpha or not?
Well, you can learn the how it feels. So over time, what you want to build is a sensory acuity. So if I now go into alpha state, I can actually feel my nervous system relaxing, and I can feel my eyes fluttering, and I can feel a flush of blood changing. But it takes some time for you to build up that sensory acuity.
Is that why you close your eyes so you don't have other sensory stimuli to come in?
You're trying to reduce the sensory stimuli, so that you can focus on. And then breathing and sort of just intentionally reducing the amount of thoughts and just saying coming back to now or coming back to a focus. So observation, if you're just focusing on a body part and breathing, using your breath, that helps you to move into alpha state. So if you've got an imagination, visualization, you've got the alpha brainwave state as a practice through meditation, through mindfulness, even through gardening, washing dishes, or going for a run. You can find your own means to get there. So that's what you sort of programming yourself. You've got your alpha state, and then the heart coherence is really being able to focus on your heart and your lung area, which stimulates the vagus nerve. To be able to train your baseline of your heart rate variance and to become more and more relaxed in many situations and not triggered by various data that's coming in, and being able to focus more on being relaxed and being in your rest and renew state as opposed to your stress state. And in that state, you come back to your frontal lobe in your brain and your neocortex, where you can think and dream and envision and connect people and empathize and have intuition and solve problems. But if we're in stress state, we all of our resources run away from that part of our brain, and we just end up in unconscious response. So if you do those few things together, and then add to that the ability to listen deeply within and take inspired action. So instead of acting out of remote, or I have to do this, or society says this, or my boss says this, or my wife says this, is be able to really listen to, if you need to, all the outside advice and things you maybe should be doing, but listen really deeply into your heart and say, what does my soul and what does my heart tell me is best for me and best for others? It's always that sort of sweet spot between self and others that I need to do today or in this moment or this phase of my life, and tuning into that to take inspired action where you'll be naturally motivated and energized. Whereas if you're in social conditioned, I should be doing this, it de-energizes you because you're now doing it on someone else's motivation, not on your own inner sense of self and direction and energy. And then the last step is really around building habits. So if you can build daily thinking habits, belief habits, feeling habits, plus the practical habits, putting on your running shoes and getting out regardless of how far you're going, or just getting onto the yoga mat, or little habits around the dinner table where you ask insightful questions to your family or listen before you respond. Whatever the habits are, building micro habits builds the neural paths faster if you do it consistently every day at the same time, same place, same context.
So then how many things can you change? Because that's going to take a lot of energy. So if you really do true to yourself about, let's talk about weight loss because it's such a big deal, about changing weight consistently over time. That's going to take significant time and energy. Then if you try and change your financial situation or relationship issue, it takes a lot of energy to bring that sustained change, those habits. So do you recommend that people just work on one area, that's a main bleeding area, and then go to the second and third area because of the amount of time and energy it takes?
Well, what I've found is and I've been doing this since I learned Alpha Mind Power. So I was really lucky. I went to an Alpha Mind Power seminar at 25. I put my tips into a jar and I used the tips to pay 800 Rand to go to an Alpha Mind Power seminar when I was at varsity. And I learned how to use Alpha Mind State then. And ever since then, I've been playing around with, is it 3 things, 4 things, 5 things, 10 things. And I think for me, if I set up my year as an example, with we normally talk about the wheel of life and sort of the 8 areas of life: financial, health, wealth, relationships, etc., and set that up for a year. And once you've got those set up in terms of a vision for your future self, what that looks like for that year, and if you want to go beyond, you can go beyond into deeper into the future. And then at any one point in time, focus on 1 or 2 things at a time, very practical, short term, because if it takes 66 days on average to change a habit and to build new neural paths, if you do it consistently, then every 66 days you can create another 2 or 3 things and another 2 or 3 things and another 2 or 3 things.
Sure.
And then by the end of the year, you've moved forward on a couple of those.
But
and
you
as
had a
one
stat like 18 to 237, like there was a research paper that I looked at.
Yeah.
So these averages like 66, what you're saying, but you could be an 80, but you could be a 237 day to change a habit. Because I mean, that would be the sample group of that study.
Let's think about trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
If you stick to certain ways of eating for 18 days consistently every day, you're going to be able to lose the weight, right? But if every day you cheat or delay or don't follow the rules, you're delaying the ability of your body to actually move into automatic.
Okay.
Because really what you want to do is have the idea that you want to lose weight, plus the emotional experience of you being successful at that, plus then automating the behaviors that lead to that. This talks about the 3 brains.
Okay.
And able to do that takes you on average. So you can take it as little as 18 days. If you're really committed, you can change some big things about yourself.
Okay, so then when a person envisions that and then does the sort of the belief and the emotions, but is really stuck, is there sometimes that neural pathway has been, driven so many times? I give the example to often patients and clients that you've been driving and believing that neural pathway for so long. So you envision this future and you then put the emotions to that and you start taking actions, but your default setting is so strong. Is there something like, I've just had Dr. Naeem Muller on the show. He's a psychiatrist looking at psychedelics and what it does from neurogenesis and how it sort of just breaks something often with regards to these consistent self-beliefs and self-talk and that. But are there times that people get so stuck because of either trauma or hardcore belief that's so wide?
Always. And the deeper the trauma or the longer term something has been with some negative, difficult situation, the harder it is to break out of it. So there's different methods to break out of those things that you can try. I mean, one thing that's worked really well is for me the retreat environment. So yes, you can have a coaching session and try and work with someone once a week or once a month and get the change. But if you immerse someone into an experience where you're focusing on that and creating both the strong visualization and specifically practicing the elevated emotions and practicing the neural paths and seeing people around you mirroring back to you, that sort of helps to have a bit of a reset. And sort of almost like jumps, if you think about, skiing down a snow slope and you're in the groove, it helps you to sort of jump out the groove and create some new grooves over that retreat period. That's why so many people, I mean, my retreat's only 3 days at this stage. I'm planning on longer journeys with people sort of over 10 months now to really, really shift massively over a 10-month journey. But the Dr. Joe Dispenza's 7-day retreat where you're meditating for 35 hours and receiving 20 hours of new information. The new information gives you an ability to visualize and an ability to see something different and a possibility. And you see other people being successful at that. Then you believe that it's possible. So it's often the belief that it is possible and then the belief that I can make it possible that becomes a very big trigger in that. And having a retreat or an outside of my normal life environment, I think, is a major part of that.
Okay, that's good.
I won't go into the other medicinal
okay. No
things.
problem.
I don't know too much about that. I know there is a lot.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of people stuck, and I think a lot of people don't even know the basics of what your thoughts. 90% of that you have today are from yesterday and are probably going to be the next, and subconscious thoughts are 95% of what we do. We don't realize only 5%. I mean, those are huge things because people are just like often blinded. They're just running on a treadmill. They're just reacting instead of responding out of this place of thought and awareness and time, and that. So I think there's a complexity in it. Made to Thrive, we say it's not a silver bullet. There's lots of different things that can add up to bring sustainable change. What about with working with couples? Because I can see that if a person within a marriage, marriage is like something that is so, I think important in today's times, partnership, whatever it is, and then the one person changes significantly and then the other person is not on that same, playing field. Do you recommend that couples go together? Do they set up a unique vision together of how their lives want to look? Because it can become so like individualized in many ways, and someone changes drastically and then, hey, this is the person I don't even marry, or I don't even recognize you anymore. And at Made to Thrive, we talk about a very important sort of mantra, I am because we are. The importance of connectedness, the importance of actually being entangled with one another, and how beneficial that is. So what do you say to partnerships or marriages and that?
I think you definitely need to have a willingness and an openness to having a joint vision, and you visualize a joint life for each other, and where of that life is going to be together, and what parts of the life and activities are going to be together, and what parts do you allow space for each other to grow and evolve, and allow each other to grow and evolve, and sort of meet each other along that journey. And there's been in our community, we talk about this a lot, because there's been people who've been very different to their spouses and been on these big significant life-changing events, and struggled for a while, but then found each other again, but being willing to work at it, and the partner's willing to kind of at least embrace the fact that you've changed, even if I don't necessarily want to change. But over time, when they see the benefits and they see how you're showing up and they see that, there's an ability to move that forward. In my situation, I mean, I've been doing this transformation work for many, many years. Been married now was married for 15 years, and we even ran transformation workshops together. But over the last number of years, we just started to drift. And then I did a big transformational retreat and started really shifting my energy and the amount of time I was spending meditating and doing this kind of work. And we weren't able to sustain our relationship after a lot of counseling and a lot of deep conversations and a lot of wishfulness to want to continue. We had to find another way of us existing and relating. So now, a year and a half later, we are now more friends, but living completely separately. And I've got space and he's doing his own thing. But we've been able to navigate that with consciousness. And through many tears and grieving and all the rest of it that goes with that. So I would really recommend that couples, if there's willingness to do the learning together, that's ideal, because then you're creating a common framework and a common sort of method to support each other in your journey, even if the journey is slightly different. That would be A1. But otherwise, I see that being open to embrace each other's learning and allow them space to grow and be part of who they want to be. And if that doesn't work, and you don't have the resonance anymore, and you don't have the willingness anymore, and there's something else that's not quite working, sometimes it's time to find your own path.
I want to get into your book, but I've got a question that I want to ask you about. I've got a 6-year-old daughter, beautiful soul, and just thinking about all this mind and subconscious and how important it is. And now, I think what Joe's been saying about till the age of 35, you are just the sum of all your thoughts, your beliefs, and your experiences over the last 35 years. And here's my daughter; she's got a clean slate, and I'm trying to give her messages that she can start believing about herself. What are the most important messages for the children, the next generation, that we can tell them so that they start believing? Because our voices are so big, and I think she doesn't even have a framework. I think until the age of 7, I had Bruce Lipton on the show, and he said, until the age of 7, there is no filter.
And they're in alpha state up to the age of 6, 7.
Well, so she's just receiving the whole time,
straight into the subconscious.
Straight in, and she's going to believe that. So what are the messages in terms of self-actualization or thriving? We talk about thriving spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically at Made to Thrive, that we can share with the next generation.
Sure, big question. I suppose I'll come back to my latest body of work, I suppose, which is the power of ape capabilities and the power of ourselves. So if we can help people understand that they have the power to choose their reality and their personality and how they think, act, and feel, and have a voice, and be able to learn from their mistakes. And the ape capabilities are, if we can teach kids to be curious about themselves, the world, others, to be courageous, to let their voice be heard, and to do things that nobody else might have expected them to do, and to give feedback, to parents and to peers and teachers, and to be able to be contributors to society as opposed to, entitled consumers, and to be able to be conscious and to have critical thinking and to
go through them now, because I think I could actually formulate some type of paragraph that I could actually write down for. I'm going to share this before you go through them, but I want you to go through them a lot slower, because I think I can formulate something and they all seize. But this page 59 on the book about curiosity, I shared it with my wife, I've shared it with a group. We met a group, psychologists and people that we're connecting with. Familiarity is the enemy of curiosity, and when our curiosity about those closest to us fades, that's the moment when our connection begins to fray. It frays silently, almost invisibly. But when we stop asking genuine questions of those around us, and most important, when we stop really listening to the answers, that's when we start to lose our connection. And there's just been so much disconnection, Craig. Debbie, looking at your book, right?
Yeah.
But and connection is so important for health and wellness. Tell us a little bit. Go through the 8. I think we can go through the book now. I know we're coming to the end of the show. Time's gone like this, and you can tell me about the quantum field, about how and why.
That's a whole other. That's a whole other.
Yeah, but
podcast
how
on
it's
that.
gone. But take us through maybe the 8 points that I want to take my daughter through, and it can come from me, and she can start believing those, and she can start saying those, and then as she starts believing, saying, and then putting an emotion to her, so like emotion to those things, then she can have the thought, the voice, the action, and the emotions with regards to these 8. And I think it's an apt question, because I think that's what you're really trying to get at.
Yeah. What has been very well received with us, and some of the stuff just sort of comes to you on a plane or talking to someone. Or I had a lovely, a friend working with me on some of it, and kind of evolves, and these continuums sort of emerged, and these identities or characters emerged on either side of these continuums. And I think what's really useful is at any stage of your life or stage of your day or week or even parts of a day, you can be highly curious and be that curious adventurer out there, trying the unknown and learning to fail and experiment.
Sure.
Or you can be, the cautious person sitting on the couch and pointing fingers at the rest of the world and throwing rocks and marches from the sidelines. So, if we can help people just become aware of where they are at, for example, on that curiosity continuum, and where have they become so boxed or stuck or grooved, then we can lift them out of that.
So we said awareness was the start.
Yes.
So awareness of these 8 critical capabilities is probably part of your assessments, to say, okay,
Correct.
I'm a very curious person, so I could set up like 8 out of 10, but then when it comes to courage, I might be at a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And that's how you sort of coach around that and develop me.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And so that's the 8 capabilities, and you can go deeply into each of those
But
capabilities.
tell us them slowly and,
Okay.
and like 1 or 2 like sentences if you can, because I mean it's a whole book here, guys. If you're listening here, I think this is crucially important. I'm going to be working through these 8 with my kids. I mean, my son's 18 and he's very curious and he's growing and he's incredible. He's just amazing. But I've got almost a clean slate with my daughter, which is absolutely like phenomenally amazing to me. So take us through them.
Well, let's just imagine imagine a world
Yes.
of kids,
Yes.
families,
Yes.
teams, organizations, communities,
Yeah.
political parties. No, we won't go there. ESCOM.
I've got to seriously got to have some serious like quantum field thinking.
Yes. So what if we could create a bunch of people that were curious,
Yes.
not just about the world, because there's many curious researchers and people who Google and learn about stuff, but curious about ourselves and our programming and how we're showing up and our impact on the world, and curious about each other, and stay curious in our relationships with our kids and what's going on for them and how they're really thinking and feeling, and not just the fast kind of, are you okay, and good for you, and off you go.
Yeah.
So that level of curiosity that we're willing to break outside of the boxes.
Okay.
And then if we go into creativity, it's not artistic creativity.
Okay, so we're going to have to numbers because people are listening.
Okay, number
so
one,
curious.
curiosity,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Second one is creativity and to
Yes.
being creative. And once again, it's the stretch from what we assume being creative is. You know that we've got 2% creativity left in us as a typical adult.
Wow.
A study that was done by George Land and NASA over a long-term study.
Okay.
So if we want to really increase our level of creativity, it's being creative how things are merging. Creative around how we can bring different people and resources and strengths together to create something bigger than what we can in ourselves. And there's some beautiful studies in South Africa of how entrepreneurs and people are working together to overcome these circumstances and their situations. So in order to be creative, you also have to be courageous, to try something new and to experiment and to reach out to someone and say, let's do this together.
Okay.
And then that leads you to collaboration, that you've got to have a collaborative mindset.
So hold on, we've got to give numbers now. Curiosity is 1.
Creativity.
2.
Courage.
Courage is 3. Then collaboration is 4. Okay.
Yeah. I just want to dip into courage for a moment, but courage requires an ability to be vulnerable, an ability to say this is working, or I don't know the answers, or I don't know how to solve this, or this is how I really feel about this relationship, this situation, this job. So that ability to be vulnerable is really, really important with courage, which is number 3. And then the ability to collaborate and work across boundaries and try new things and have a mindset of abundance and first trust before, a doubt.
Okay.
Is what we're looking for from a collaboration point of view. And then we're looking for change navigators. So imagine changes thrown at us in so many deep ends, especially over the last bit of time. But despite this changing world, we can still have a vision for the future. And together we can create a narrative and a story and take people with us to build that future together in this uncertain environment, as opposed to sit on the sideline once again and sort of resist or criticize people that are trying to take us into a new world. And then you spoke about awareness, right?
Yes.
So we've used the word conscious for awareness, and to be conscious of how I'm spending my time and energy and resources, and conscious of how I'm showing up in my impact. So because we're living in this world of distraction and so much data and social media and too many things to manage and lean resources and restructuring, how do we really become conscious of how I now dedicate my focus, my time, my energy and my impact to really make a bigger difference?
So are these linear now? Are we?
No,
not at all. Because consciousness would seem to become first. If I just want to, if I had to say to someone, if you had to sit with me and say, let's become conscious of, aware of how you're pitching up, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're acting, your body, your environment, and your time. So that's almost the start. Am I right or not?
Yeah.
Really?
So what we've got right at the beginning of the book, we've got how sort of a chapter on choice and change, which is sort of the high level of awareness, and all the brain shift techniques. And the neuroscience is in that chapter. So that's what we start with.
So that's, you got to start with that.
We start with awareness of conscious, your power to choose and the power to change and what that means. And then we jump into the 8 capabilities. All of these are, and so many organizations come to us and say, we've only got time to do 3 or 4. Which 3 or 4? But it's so hard. Yes, you can do 3 or 4, but actually they all work together.
Yeah. They're almost
it's really hard to be collaborative without courage. It's really hard to be creative without curiosity. It's really hard to have a collaborative mindset without having an attitude of contribution. So where were we? We were on
so let's run through them again.
Okay.
So number
Curiosity,
1, curiosity.
Creativity.
2, creativity. 3,
courage.
4,
collaboration.
5.
And then change navigator and consciousness.
6. So we finished 6 now.
Yes.
And then 7 and 8.
I spoke briefly around contribution.
Yes.
And that you have a contribution mindset as opposed to entitled consumer mindset. And really wanting to leave an impact on the planet, leave a legacy, be a mentor, grow the next generation, as opposed to the me, take, what's in it for me. And so it's really shift that. So imagine a community where we had more people saying, how can I make a difference, rather than what I can get. Okay. And then the other skill that we said is critical to all of these as well is critical thinking. How do we ask the right questions? How do we test whether everybody's involved? How do we know that we've checked the unintended consequences, the systemic impact of what we're trying to achieve, and not just jumping to conclusion and making assumptions, but being able to think with real clarity in the right part of our brain to do that.
Brilliant. So with a team, would you recommend, if you had to do sort of recruitment, that you would do an assessment, and some people might be strong in collaboration or curiosity and others less in courage, that you would almost have a balance within a team, because then you would be far more diverse, but then there would be a lot of unity with regards to that team.
It obviously helps. The more capabilities you have in a team context, the better, but also sometimes the lowest denominator in the team is where the team actually sits. Okay. So what you really want to do are capabilities. Correct. As opposed to a personality which may not change so much. These are stuff you can actively grow, and you can grow quite quickly. Okay. With the right beliefs, identities, beliefs, feelings and habits, which is the recipe. You can grow these and grow the whole team's ability to perform with these. So a lot of what we're doing now is we're taking these capabilities, aligning them to the values and the behaviors that organization requires to be successful or move their strategy towards or move their culture towards. And then we build the capabilities aligned to how the behaviors need to show up. Okay. And we take people along a journey. So
if it's an innovation company, then you've got to really look at being curious and courageous, possibly, because
might be the higher order. So in a learning program, you'll spend more time on those kind of capabilities, maybe than some of the others. But recognizing that it's really difficult to be curious and creative without a collaborative mindset or without a contribution mindset. Sure. So you've really got to cover most of them, but some you can emphasize for sure.
Sure, sounds exciting. So tell us a little bit about, where people can find you, your work. I mean, I think the book is for everyone. I really recommend it. I'm going to be using it more and more. In fact, I think I'm going to be asking Debbie for some coaching with regards to Made to Thrive and the practice and the businesses that we're involved in. But tell us where people can find you, how they can connect with you, your work, what they can listen to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think most of my body of work sits with my Catalyst Consulting website and then my Facebook and LinkedIn profiles.
Okay.
So it's catalystconsulting.co.za or .global. You can have a look at it's the same site. On there you can look at resources and books, and you can go in and you can look at the books and the learning program overviews. We've also got various webinars and podcasts that are loaded onto the website. Hopefully this one will be loaded up there soon.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Also on the website, if you go to the website /surveys, you'll find the Power Up 8 Resilience Potential Survey. And then you can go and you can have a look at and do a free survey and get a free individualized report for you.
Sure.
You can call us if you want some coaching on that report. We can connect you with a coach. You can call us if you want to run a team session. Just contact us.
That's cool. That's a cool like survey and So how many is it a questionnaire or questions that you go through?
Yeah, it's a questionnaire that comes up with where you're at on the continuum and gives you some advice as to what to focus on and what to watch out for.
Based on the 8 capabilities.
Based on the 8 capabilities.
Oh wow,
correct.
that's really, really cool. Well done.
Yeah. And then we also do talks and webinars and learning programs on Power Up 8 as well. And what I'm also really excited about is I'm the only currently active Dr. Joe Dispenza neurochange consultant in South Africa. There's a couple of others busy in progress.
Yes.
And to run actually the Change Your Mind, Create New Results program, which is the neuroscience of change, but in depth with a lot of the brain science, alpha state techniques, meditation techniques, and how to shift yourself from a state of survival to a state of creation. And I think that's probably one of the most powerful programs. Power Up 8 is a light version of that with the capability. So that's a really good place if you interested.
What's the light version?
The light version, and then moving into
the deep.
Into the deep. Yeah.
Okay. Last comment. Give us a message of hope. There's been so much despair. I've been in practice here 24 years. I've never seen so much anxiety. Anxiety is up by like 56% in the last 2 years at least. Some stats are putting it up at like 350%. People are down, people are tired, people are burnt out, they're exhausted. I've just never seen so much negativity. Yet there is a small collective consciousness that's growing that I've met through my podcast and through the work that I'm doing. But it pales into sort of significance or insignificance with regards to the people that I'm in contact with on a daily basis and a weekly basis. It's just the field is so strong. And I tell the story of when I came here on the 26th of March 2020, first day of lockdown. I've never felt the field and the biomagnetic field of fear like never before in 24 years. And that field of anxiety and trepidation and uncertainty is still there, and I think I'm aware of it. So give us a message of hope with regards to South Africans. I mean, 41% of our listenership is in America, so I think it's pretty much the same there, if not even worse, because I think their health to a large degree was in a tough space before COVID. I mean, before COVID, for 3 years, the CDC said that longevity had gone down, so they were in the wrong direction already. But give a message of hope for the people listening and on YouTube.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we end up in the state that we're in, our personal reality, is because of the level of stress and our ability to manage and cultivate a different response to this high change environment and to the environment, body and time stuff that I spoke about earlier. And the community that I'm working within, the global community and the local community around the Dr. Joe Dispenza and the Power Up 8, it's almost as they learn these techniques and these skills to be able to very scientifically and biochemistry shift themselves to stress state, to creation state, and be able to shift their biochemistry to cortisol and adrenaline, to the positive, beautiful hormones that we love, and learn how to do that and shift their brain state. The possibilities open up. The ability to connect and empathize open up. The ability to see solutions where they couldn't see solutions before, and start collaborating together to find new ways of creating a team environment, a business environment, a community around them. It's beautiful to watch, and it can happen actually so quickly if we learn the science and we learn the techniques. And the techniques aren't difficult, and they don't take a lot of time. And it's being willing to learn that there is not new, it's been around forever and ever, but sort of a way of connecting with your own potential and your own performance through understanding the neural paths of the brain and the heart coherence in connection with the electromagnetic energy field, which is another area we must delve into at some stage, in order to activate how you respond to life in a different way and overcome the environment that you're in. And as you change your neural paths, and your ability to be in heart coherence and see things with new eyes, your energy changes, your emotions changes, how you show up changes. People will make comments of, people in our environment just saying like, where do you get your energy, or where do you get your lightness, or where do you get your sense of hope, or where do you get your inspiration from? And it's self-generated and encouraged through community. And it's totally possible to shift your lives. We've seen it with thousands of people that I've been through and worked with in transformation processes, and of course the whole global and local community, where people are shifting real health issues, whether it's from weight and depression, anxiety, to all the way through to cancer and other processes. Having the ability to actually shift their reality through a different way of seeing the world.
Brilliant. So there's hope. I really recommend that people listen to this not only once but twice. Write your notes down, connect with Made to Thrive and with Debbie. We'll put those links in the show notes. I think this is an incredible show. Well done. I'm really proud that you're a South African that's pioneering in the most incredible way. I mean, just saying that now, I've got these goosebumps and just these emotions, because I think many people's lives have been changed through you. So well done. Declare favor and blessing over you, that you would absolutely live out your uniqueness and in terms of what you bring to this world. So thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you, and thanks, Steve, for creating this platform for so many beautiful speakers and enthusiastic, passionate people around, making a difference and making this place a better place and a happier place to be and to live and to thrive.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.